Welcome back, everyone, to the Truth and Freedom podcast, where awakening begins with asking the question most people are afraid to ask. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Amzallag, and this is not just another podcast. This is a journey into awareness, courage, and truth. Now, there's a moment in almost every healing journey when you look back at the relationship you've chosen, romantic partners, friendship, even professional dynamics, and ask yourself, why did I stay? Why did I choose someone who hurt me? Why did I feel so connected to something that was destroying me? And for many people, the answer lies in something most of us don't recognize until long after the damage is done, which is the trauma bond. A trauma bond is one of the most powerful and deceptive emotional attachment a human being can experience. It doesn't feel toxic in the beginning. In fact, it often feels like the most intense, addictive, magnetic love of your life. There's chemistry, connection, passion, but there's also fear, inconsistency, and pain. And because the highs are so high, we tolerate the lows. We become conditioned to chase the moments of affection, validation, and closeness, even if they're followed by hurt, manipulation, or abandonment. What most people don't realize is that trauma bonds are not created in adulthood. They are reenacted. They are born from unresolved wounds that were formed long before our first heartbreak. So when you grow up in an environment where love was unpredictable, inconsistent, or unsafe, your nervous system learns to associate intensity with intimacy. Chaos feels like home. Anxiety feels like passion. The love that keeps you guessing feels more familiar than the love that keeps you grounded. So when someone comes along who mirrors those early dynamics, hot and cold, loving one moment and distant the next, your brain doesn't warn you. It recognizes it. It says, this feels familiar. This must be love. You don't consciously think this, but your body remembers the dance, the tension, the waiting, the hoping. And without meaning to, you recreate the same emotional loops you swore you'd never repeat. That is the trap of a trauma bond. It feels like destiny when it's really dysfunction. Now, what makes trauma bonds so powerful is the cycle. There's pain, then reconciliation, hurt, then repair, emotional withdrawal, followed by affection. Your brain becomes chemically addicted to the relief after the distress. You start accepting scraps of love because the scraps feel euphoric when you've been starving. And this cycle keeps you hooked, not because you're weak, not because you're blind, but because your nervous system is operating from survival, not clarity. And here's the part most people struggle to accept. Trauma bonds are not about the other person. They're about the unhealed part of ourselves that still believe love is something we must earn, chase, or fight for. The bond forms around the wound, not the person. That's why the connection feels irreplaceable, even when the relationship is breaking you. You're not attached to them. You're attached to the hope that this time, someone will finally choose you, love you consistently, or meet the need that was never fully met in the past. The tragedy is that these bonds keep us from experiencing real love. Love that is stable. Love that is reciprocal. Love that doesn't require suffering as proof of connection. You cannot receive a healthy love while trying to heal from the kind that keeps you wounded. But here's the truth I want to hold you onto. The moment you recognize the pattern, the spell begins to break. Awareness is the first crack in the cycle. Because once you see that this connection is your trauma speaking, not your intuition, you gain power. You start to question the narrative. You begin to understand that intensity isn't intimacy. Inconsistency is in love, and anxiety is in chemistry. What you thought was fate was really a familiar wound replacing itself. Now, healing from trauma bond doesn't come from blaming yourself or hating the other person. It comes from grieving the version of you who thought chaos was love. It comes from nurturing the parts of you that never felt safe. It comes from learning what real emotional safety feels like. calmness, predictability, respect, accountability, and consistency. So when you learn that these qualities are not boring, but secure, your body begins to recalibrate. And then something incredible happens. The people who you used to attract you lose their power. The emotional roller coaster that once felt intoxicating begins to feel exhausting. The crumbs of affection that once felt like a feast begin to feel insulting. And for the first time, you start craving a different kind of connection, one rooted in peace instead of panic. So today, I want you to know this. You don't attract what you deserve. You attract what feels familiar until you heal. But the moment you choose healing, you rewrite your patterns. You retrain your nervous system. You redefine love. And in that truth lies your freedom. The freedom to choose differently, the freedom to break cycles, and the freedom to finally receive the kind of love that doesn't hurt. I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this episode. And also, on episode 5, we'll explore the freedom of boundaries, how to say no without guilt and taking your power back. You don't want to miss this one, especially if you're struggling with saying no to people. Until then, my friend, stay awake, stay grounded, and stay free.